G'day, community. It's Lekdog here. Just recording a little amendment to the podcast. So during the podcast, I talked about not believing in curses and selecting Sam Walsh in Supercoach 2022, and it's just come across that the rumours are true, and he has suffered a syndesmosis ankle injury, and he will miss at least a month to start the season. And I just want to say I'm sorry. I just want to say I'm so bloody sorry to everyone out there who trusted me, who I let down. But we will get through this together. We'll come out stronger on the other side. We will have plenty to discuss. So maybe just skip the Carlton portion of this podcast and we'll touch on it. We'll touch on it at a later date. Anyway, it's a very good episode, and I really recommend that you all listen to it. Oh God bless you all. G'day, community, and welcome to the Jock Reynolds Supercoach podcast. I'm Lekdog. I am joined today by two very beautiful human beings. The first one being the man who has kept the bloody website running. That's you, Damo. How are you over in WA?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to the season finally beginning. We need to actually see some football played very soon. I mean, we've got the AFLW, but AFLW unfortunately doesn't have a Supercoach format. The fantasy format is still going strong though, and but we're not tinkering with our AFLW fantasy team. Everyone seems to be posting different versions of their team, and everyone's just going around in circles at this stage. So can't wait for some men's footy to get underway.
No, looking forward to it. Thank you again for organising all of the pocket profiles, which are up on the site. Every single team is analysed, and we're going to talk about that today. We're going to go through them, take a look, and discuss how we think that's all landed. Patchy boy. Pleasure to see you.
Dog. Oh, mate, I am walking on sunshine to be back chatting with you two beautiful eggs. Damo, you've been absolutely killing it running all of that website content. There's community, there's so much on the online, on the internet, like just generally, but also jockreynolds.com.au. There's so much stuff. Marto has been pumping out 600k midfielders analysis, and there's been some rookie stuff. There's been all of the pocket profiles. There's been the team picker. There's been so much stuff.
Yep, your rookie Bible went up early last week or middle of last week, which is, basically highlighted everything we know about the rookies so far.
It's not a lot.
Not a lot, but it went up, and that's nice. Barron's breakdown went up a couple of weeks ago, which was essentially every single player analysed. Damo, you chucked up a late to the party article looking at players who debuted late last year who might be Supercoach relevant. And then the top 5 series, which we haven't done in a couple of years, has kicked off. Marto has put up the top 5 most discriminated against in Supercoach 2022, which I think is hilarious. So that's a great read. We're going to have a few more top 5s appearing on the site over the next couple of weeks. But let's jump into today. By the way, today's podcast brought to you by supercoachchampion.com. They make Supercoach rings, Supercoach Championship rings. If you go to our Twitter page, you'll see videos of those rings. They always do an awesome job. They've made us a custom one for our trivia competition, which will happen, I promise, throughout this season. That's not going to not happen. Jump on, get your rings for your fantasy league, Supercoach League. They do NRL, AFL, BBL, custom made, fantasy, Supercoach. They do it all. That's supercoachchampion.com. And tell them we sent you. Gentlemen,
Lekdog.
We're going to jump straight in with the Fremantle Dockers patch. Now, Damo, we will get your thoughts on this because you wrote this, but it was on the 3rd of the 1st. We're now the 13th of the 2nd, so quite some time ago. Patch, the name that jumped out to me was Sean Darcy. Sean Darcy, $642,600. He's a ruckman. The big man, Hodor, averaged 118 in 2021 with only 3 scores below 90. He is a very popular selection so far this year, and people think he's taking the next step. Patch, what do you think?
Look, I mean, he kind of took the next step, but I'm still, once bitten, twice shy. Riley O'Brien did this a few years ago, and I don't know. $642,000 is a lot of dollars to pay for a ruck who's, done it once, done it very well. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't. He hasn't been in my team all preseason as of yet.
Well, Damo, I'll ask you about him. Have your thoughts changed at all, or is he still someone that you think coaches out there should consider for that R1 or potentially R2 spot? Although, is there anyone more expensive than him? Is it just Maxi Gawn?
Just Max Gorn more expensive than him, and I have seen a few Gorn Darcy combinations, but
Going big.
Sean Darcy hasn't moved from my team, and there seems to be the idea that he's injured, but he hasn't actually missed a training session yet for the Dockers. He has left the field twice over the preseason, but hasn't actually missed a session. So, and he does have a history of getting injured in the preseason. So I think they're just sort of taking a conservative approach with him, but his fitness has improved. He looks like a much more athletic specimen. He doesn't look like that big bulking puppy fat sort of guy anymore. He's looking more like a footballer, and I think as long as he can stay fit, he's going to give Grundy and Gawn a run for their money.
Well, it's an interesting one. I've actually got none of those 3 in my team at the moment, so we won't talk about my team. But Sean Darcy, I've been looking at him. My thought is I'm going to try and get some value on the rucks, but he's definitely someone that I think I can get later on for, if not a bit cheaper, the same price. But totally understand starting him. I think we talk about this every year. Maybe this is the year that the torch gets passed, gentlemen. Maybe this is the year.
Maybe it's we'll talk about Brady Grundy when we get to Collingwood, but Darcy's probably second in line, but I don't know what we're doing ruck-wise this year, and I just getting bad vibes, and that's, in February, vibes are enough for me to not pick someone at this stage.
Damo, is there anything else standing out? When you wrote this, was quite a while ago. Is there any other news, any changes you might make to this article? By the way, follow Damo at DamoSC on Twitter.
Quite a bit has changed in 6 weeks. I still think that Nathan O'Driscoll is the rookie to keep an eye on. I don't think, based on who's available and what I've been hearing, I don't think Neil Erasmus actually plays round 1. There is every chance that he will debut early in the season, and they might be saving him for a home debut in round 2, but I don't think he opens the season in the side. I don't know if Nathan O'Driscoll opens the season in the side either, but both have been impressing in the preseason, and I think there's a chance that one of them, if not both of them, will debut in the first couple of rounds.
Now, one name I don't want to spend. It's easy to get stuck on the profiles that we wrote. I just want to ask you. He was only mentioned sort of as an offhanded line at the start of the article, but Will Brodie, $224,300 mid forward, came across from the Suns in the off season. Is there any news on him? Has anything changed around Will Brodie?
The only thing that has changed is I don't know if he is in that 22 to start the year. If he is, he's probably starting as the substitute against Adelaide in round 1.
Okay, interesting one to watch for sure.
I hadn't thought about the sub risk with Will Brodie, but it is very real, and that scares me quite a bit because it's a tough best 22 to pick. It's just not easy at all. I also really like Hayden Young. Don't know if I can squeeze him in. Depends on if we don't get a lot of rookies in the back line or what happens there. but keeping a very close eye on a fit Hayden Young at getting kick-ins.
I tried not to touch the defence because I had no idea how it was going to line up, because they've got Joel Hamling, Brennan Cox, Luke Ryan, Griffin Logue, and Alex Pearce all to fit in. I think Luke Ryan, obviously there's some locks in there. Like Luke Ryan won't be a key defender again. Like he will be someone who is allowed to use the ball like he should use the ball. But in saying that, with Heath Chapman and Hayden Young there, and no real lockdown defender, is he the one who is sent to the small forwards? Or do they play Hamling, Cox, and Pearce and give that job to Griffin Logue, who has shut down the likes of Charlie Cameron in the past? It really depends on what they want to do in that space. And I really didn't want to touch any of the defenders. Hayden Young, I did want to talk about Hayden Young, but I couldn't find a heading for him.
Yeah, he's in that weird, he did give Sean Darcy the breakout, which I thought was very funny. But yeah, I don't know where you fit him in, both as a Supercoach option and how he fits into that side. And he's just one I'm going to watch over the next couple of weeks or the next couple of months.
And I did mention in the intro that Hayden Young could break out because he averaged 89.6 over the final 5 games with 3 scores of 94 or more.
Yep. Heath Chapman as well could be. Need plenty of more preseason stuff.
If there's no defender rookies, then Heath Chapman at 275k could be one that people have to pay up for.
Yeah.
All right, Damo, let's push forward. Let's look at the Brisbane Lions. This one was written by Zach, who finished 6th in Supercoach last year. You can follow him on Twitter at ReactTAU. So ReactTAU. He's a great community member, loves his Lions, loves Zack Bailey almost as much as I do. And he's got some insights into the Brisbane Lions. Damo, do you have any thoughts on what he put up for us?
Speaking to him earlier today, actually, about who potentially could be someone to look at the Lions, and he said their 22 will remain pretty much identical to the way it was at the end of last season. So you're not going to see many rookies debut early, and the main difference will be that Darcy Fort plays instead of Eric Hipwood. So Jared Lyons, he had to mention Jared Lyons as his lock because no one else seems to want to start Jared Lyons, but every year not every year because only the last couple of years he's been at the Brisbane Lions, but every year he's been at the Brisbane Lions, he has been one of the best midfielders in Supercoach.
He kind of reminds me of like Jack McRae when he'd just become really good, but people were still refusing to select him. It took a couple of years of Jack McRae being, an elite 110 plus scorer before people actually liked him. Obviously, Patch, you're the exception. You caused his breakout. Congratulations. Jared Lyons just gets the job done and scores well, and is in a criminally low amount of teams at the moment. His numbers speak for themselves. If you didn't look at his name and you just had his numbers on a spreadsheet, Damo, you'd have him in your team.
Oh yeah, for sure. But people worry about his age. People worry about Brisbane potentially wanting to reinvent their midfield. Brisbane are trying to win a flag, and their midfield is one of their best assets. Why would they change that? It's their defense that needs the run, and it's their forward line that needs to score better.
Patch, is there any names on this Brisbane breakout, Brisbane pocket profile that stuck out to you, or anyone that maybe didn't appear that you're interested in?
I don't think Jared Lyons is the lock. I think Lachie Neale is the lock at the Lions this year, and I don't think Lyons is someone we really should be looking at incredibly closely to start the season. I'm just concerned about them pushing Rayner through the middle. Jared Berry's getting a run through the middle. Cam Rayner obviously gets more midfield minutes this year. I don't know.
Zack the Goat Bailey.
Zack the Goat Bailey. Thank you. He missed their match sim today. I don't know if it's just managing his load or if he's injured. I just get a little bit worried at this stage. Maybe it's fine by round 1 and, I do a backflip. But at this stage, I'm not hugely keen. Kadeem Coleman as well, since this went up. This went up very early January as well. Gideon Coleman might be sliding onto that halfback flank, that Grant Birchall role. Dane Zorko's been floated across halfback, but Dane Zorko is also getting a bit old. They've got James Madden as well. I'm keeping an eye on Kitty Coleman at 263,200 as a defence forward. Awkward price, but again, the rookie situation might require some creative manoeuvring.
Well, can you just speak to Lachie Neale very quickly? $543,200, averaged 99.8, essentially 100 last year in the 15 matches he played. He's in 50% of teams. He's not in my team. Can you just speak to him and why we should be considering him? Well, why everyone except me is considering him, I guess.
Yes, I can do that relatively quickly. 2015, average 104. 2016, 112. 2017, 109. 2018, 111. 2019, 121. 2020, 134. 2021, very injury affected, 99. I rest my case, Your Honour.
And not only Lachie Neale, but also people in the Lions camp is saying this is the fittest they have seen Lachie Neale since he began at the Brisbane Lions.
Yep, he's missed in those, aside from last year, does not miss many games of footy either.
Interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
He is probably underpriced for what he's done in the past, and I think that's how we get ahead this year. He's probably going to end up in my team, but I don't have him yet.
It'll come. You'll come to your senses. I believe in you.
All right.
Do you want to talk about Zack Bailey before we move on?
I just think he's the logical choice as a forward breakout option. He's going to get midfield minutes. He's probably going to split those minutes with Cam Rayner. He's an explosive player who can impact games late, and we saw that happen a couple of times last year where he gets rewarded quite heavily by champion data. He had 10 scores of 90 or more last season, and I just think as a forward option, he's at $459,000. He's an exciting prospect. Not in my latest draft at the moment. I slipped Cam Rayner into that position for $200,000 cheaper, but I think the upside of Bailey is higher than the upside of Rayner.
I think you're right.
Should we move on to Sydney?
We should, Damo. Take it away.
All right, so Zane wrote this one. Big Swans fan. He loves his Swans, and I think if you go to his Twitter timeline, he's either talking about the Swans or drawing the Swans or talking about drawing the Swans. So, Patch, was there anyone in the Swans profile that caught your eye?
Paddy McCartan. It's happening.
We haven't spoken since he was added to Supercoach, and he's been added at $157,000.
But he's been added. $157,000 is a weird price, but yeah, I don't know what the basis is. We've spoken about it a little bit, you and I, Damo. I think it just makes it more interesting. It's just that if he was 102, everyone would pick him. 150 makes it more interesting, and you know what? That's fine. It makes it more interesting.
I think he'll be one of those players who people will complain about the price of, and sort of won't pick him.
Yeah, people.
And then he'll play round one, and then he'll be named round one, and then he's suddenly in 68% of teams.
Yeah, people will complain.
He's
about
currently in 2% of teams.
Yeah,
I mean, we essentially think, right, that the price is just based on the last time he played, and they're ignoring the fact that they're basically assuming like he's priced at what he was last when he played, and the 2 years out we're just ignoring that, right?
I don't know.
It feels that way.
I don't think it really matters. They've added him. That's the price.
The Gary Ablett rule, right?
Sure. We're here. He's been added. I think he's still on the verge of that 22. He doesn't immediately, command a spot straight off the bat, but I think he's pushing for it. And if he gets it, it'll be as that third tall in defense, which if he works, then, that's a lucrative spot. If he gets it, might get thrown up forward if they get injuries, which a little bit of a concern, but he'll be playing if he gets picked. And I think that is very good. And props to Zano for calling that, first couple of days of Jan, as well as listing him as the rookie.
The thing that gets me is he's put Jake Lloyd as his lock. Now, I Jake Lloyd hasn't been anywhere near my team.
Mine neither.
And it's because there's no Jordan Dawson. Every time Jordan Dawson has missed a game for the Sydney Swans since he nailed down a spot in that 22, every game he has missed, Jake Lloyd has been the one moved up onto the wing. And I know that they've been trailing the likes of your Dylan Stevens and your Justin McInerney's in those positions. But what if gets to round 5 and Horse decides that that's not working? I think Jake Lloyd moves to the wing and goes back to averaging in the mid 90s. And I don't want to fork out $586,000 for someone who's going to get a role change mid-year.
I'll tell you what, I'm not spending more than 540 grand on, and my old 500 grand rule is back. It's now the 550 rule. I'm not spending more than 550 on anyone in defense, Jake Lloyd inclusive. Having said that, I don't think I've ever started Jake Lloyd, so maybe disregard. He's in 44% of teams. I just know I'm going to get him cheaper later on.
Yeah, he's in mine at the moment, but I think he'll be fine. Like, I don't think he's a must-have. I think he'll continue on maybe, a little bit less than what he did last year. But I think they've had the full preseason, and they've got enough troops now. They've got McInerney, they've got Ollie Florent, they've got Isaac Heaney pushing up the ground, they've got Errol Goulden, they've got the Warner brothers. Like, they've got enough players that can play in the wing that I don't think they drag Lloyd out long term. Like, maybe one, a couple of games as a stopgap, but I don't think long term he finds that role on the wing. I just think they've got enough troops that I'm not worried about it, but also, there's not a lot of upside to Jake Lloyd. You know what you're going to get. He'll be good.
I just have enough of that worry to not want to select him.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. The breakout, Isaac Heaney. Yeah. How do we feel? How do we feel about the Heen dog?
Nope.
I picked Heaney 3 years in a row and had to trade him out each of those 3 years within the first 8 rounds. Or something like that.
And you know what, Damo? I'm ready to get burned again.
I'm not. I'm going nowhere near him.
Zane said that if Isaac Heaney's not a top 8 forward for total points at the end of the year, he's buying a GWS membership. But I think you're buying it. I think you should just go ahead and buy it now, Zane. I don't think he's not going to play enough games.
I can see a world where it happens. I can see that world. And they're, the fact that Callum Mills did it last year after a long apprenticeship in the back line, it fills me with I don't want to use the word confidence, but it makes that world that Heaney is a viable midfield option more palatable.
No, thank you.
Moving along.
Yeah, so that's Zane. Follow him at Zane Red White, ZaneRedNWhite on Twitter, or Zano, ZANEO.ART, Zano Art on Instagram. He's got some beautiful hand-drawn painted AFL pictures and caricatures, and I've got a nice Eddie Betts one that he sent me. He's a beautiful man, is Zano.
Good egg. Good egg.
Next up, do we have the Western Bulldogs patch? I think that's correct.
The Western Bullfrogs. We do.
Wow, and this one was made by, and if you're in the Supercoach world, you know him, Seeker on Twitter, at Seeker_11. That's the word 11. Big Bulldogs fan. And I tell you what, I mean, we've already spoken about Jake McRae. He's the lock. He's the best name on this list. But the rookie, Charlie Parker, $102,400, is just an interesting player that was in this write-up that I'd love to slot into my team if he can get in. He's a mature age selection rookie. We saw last year that Bevo did play those mature age rookies they brought in to top up. Charlie Parker seems like he could be a decent option for us.
He hasn't left my team since the team picker opened, and I feel like he's someone who no one's really paying attention to or talking about as a rookie option, but I think once he's named in round 1, we're going to see him in a lot more teams, and he's got the scoring potential to actually probably be on field for most people by about round 2 or 3.
Yeah, he's kind of that Eastern Wood clone, which we spoke about in our post-draft wrap-up. Gosh, Bevo scares me though. Gosh, I don't like having Bulldogs rookies in my side because, oh boy, is that just. Ooh. But yeah, if he's named round one, then obviously you slide him straight in and just watch him go because they to their credit they do give him a good run when they actually get a crack in there.
Well, I wanted to ask you, Damo. There's one name who didn't actually make this write-up. That's one Marcus Bontempelli, who averaged 120 last year. He's only in 11% of teams. He's $651,700. Mid-only currently. We assume he might get forward eligibility later on with the new rules. Damo, why is no one talking about Marcus Bontempelli?
I should mention this article was released before the official opening of Supercoach. So at this point in time, Seeker did not know that there would be dual positions added at rounds 6, 12, and 18.
That's good.
So he probably would have mentioned Marcus Bontempelli if he had known that. And by all reports, well, not by all reports, by assumption, everyone thinks Marcus Bontempelli is going to get that forward eligibility at one of those intervals.
Well, look, let's assume he gets forward eligibility. Everyone's going to bring him in as a forward. Starting him, it might be a calculated risk. Starting him as a mid only and hoping he gains forward. But if he doesn't gain forward, is he still a good selection, Damo?
He seems to rack up points just by breathing and being on the field, so I don't see why you can't start him. He's just not one of those attractive, sexy selections, you know?
He's an attractive, sexy man, though. Goodness me.
He certainly is. Ended up finishing last year priced at like 550k, so maybe the outlay he might lose 100k through the year. But Patch, he was the fifth ranked. He was the fifth ranked player in the competition for Supercoach last year, and he's only in 11% of teams.
He's good at football. He's also very expensive, and Bond is prone to those stints up forward, which might get him DPP, but also sees a price drop. So I think there's a better chance of picking up him cheaper during the year than there is with, say, a Jack McRae, who is just consistent the whole way through. So I don't know. I think that might be playing into it, but and you also just can't have too many dogs. And if you put Bont and McRae next to each other, I know which one I'm taking every day of the week. Caleb Daniel intrigues me as well.
Yeah, he's in my defense.
Feels underpriced. I don't know. Maybe he's just back to his old ways next year, and we don't talk about that. And what was it? Was it a 17 or something he scored from a full game of football last year?
I can tell you, but I'll have to. I've got his profile up. I'm just trying to find it. But geez, I'm still upset about that. I swore I'd never pick him again. He scored a 19, and then got suspended. I was so mad at him. I swore him off. But then he averaged 94 from rounds 8 to 16, and then 105 from rounds 17 to 23. So he ended the season as one of the higher averaging defenders, Damo. And at 510k, as much as he hurt me, he's attractive.
What do you think about Josh Dunkley as an avoid in this article? He's said that since he has become a full-time midfielder, he has missed massive chunks of the season.
Yeah, it's a concern. It's a concern for me.
It's kind of Josh Dunkley falling into that Isaac Heaney sort of realm.
Oh,
I agree.
Slander.
I agree.
Slander on Josh Dunkley's good name.
2019, 22 games. 2020, 11 games. 2021, 11 games. I'm just not willing to fork out for a guy that I suspect he's going to get injured again, Demo, and it's interesting that it coincides with that full-time mid, and you might be onto something there.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at it. He's very expensive, which hurts a lot, but his start of the year last year, 113, 132, 132, 117, 148, 132 before getting injured. The fact that we've got the trade boost this year means that there's almost more of a chance you can cover that. Those 5 extra trades you could use them as if you want to be, balls to the wall and forget about the COVID situation, which might hurt us. You could just say, well, they're 5 extra injury trades to let me be a bit more risky to start with. I don't know if that's a good school of thought, but I don't know.
I think
He's in 50% of teams as well, which kind of astounds me. But
there will be people planning to use those trade boosts, and there will be people planning as if they've still only got 30. And there is no wrong way to plan building your team.
there is.
It's just
whatever way I do
an
it.
interesting. It's just interesting the way people are planning their teams going into this season. We can't spend the entire podcast on Western Bulldogs though, so we'll move to Carlton that Lek you wrote.
I did.
Is there anything there that you need to change? Because it's been about a month since you wrote it.
Look, the only one. I'm still avoiding him, Paddy Cripps. I'm still avoiding him, but he has put the weight back on. Everyone reckons he's doing the midfield thing again. He's focusing on pure tackle and extraction and handballs. And look, I've been away. I haven't been at the track watching the training sessions. Everyone's saying that he's back to what he was. I will believe that when I see it. Look, I don't think I would change anything because I don't know. I can't think of a player who's, from a Supercoach relevance point, going to break out. So that's why I spoke about Mark Pittonet as well. And that was more looking at him as a draft sort of breakout player rather than a classic. And a few people messaged me saying, "Oh, they were going to pick him after I wrote this," but you should not in classic.
Do not do that.
But I just can't think of someone from the Blues who's going to break out.
One name you mentioned, but you didn't put under a heading, was George Hewitt. He's a almost 400k defensive midfielder, and we have seen him be a midfield bull at the Swans in the periods of time that Josh Kennedy and Luke Parker have missed. Is there any chance we see those 110 plus scores week in, week out from George Hewitt, or is it his role too unknown at this stage?
Look, I imagine that he takes Ed Kerno's role. Ed Kerno is a player who in the past has averaged 100, averaged about 86 last year. I imagine that's where George Hewitt ceiling sort of is, or his average will be across the year. He went back to his natural role in the last sort of 6 rounds of last year, and he averaged 88 across those rounds. And that's probably what I expect him to do. Maybe there's a little bit of an uptick. Midfielders tend to have a slight uptick when they move clubs, but I think, I don't know, is 400 grand for a guy who might average 88 to 93 worth it? I don't know, especially when the floor could be as low as 60, which is more a reflection of the Blues than George Hewitt. But yeah, there's probably too many question marks for me to consider him. Having said that, he's another name that everyone's talking about. Zach Williams is another that's having the best preseason he's ever had. So just get ready to ride that roller coaster with any of these guys.
Yeah, I quite like Hewitt as an option, but more of a draft option, I think.
Definitely.
I don't think as a classic option, he's probably up there. The 5% of teams that have Caleb Marchbank in them, what are you doing?
Well, he apparently he's almost finished his reconditioning. He's almost back to
his 8-year reconditioning program.
I'm just telling you what they're saying. Apparently he's in the final phases of his conditioning. He's whatever he is, 180 grand or 200 grand. I don't even know how much he is.
It feels like he's been conditioning since he got traded from GWS.
Honestly, I would take one-legged Caleb Marchbank in defence over Mr. McGovern. So look, the people are just clutching at mid-price straws there. Brody Kemp is the choice of the lot, and he hasn't had the chance to show his scoring potential yet. But the thing is, he's going to probably start in as a third tall in defence and learn his craft, and they're going to let him push up the ground as the season goes on. So he's probably a slow burn. But yeah, it's
that's right. We'll take it.
I'm worried that like the number one owned player outside of Sam Walsh is Dom McCooey, 102,000 defence ruck.
Well, Charles Curnow is up at 220, 25% ownership.
Oh yes, sorry. Apart from Charlie Curnow as well, which is a great selection, and everyone should pick him.
Rightio. Geelong, written by Supercoach Mama, winner of Supercoach last year. She wrote.
So we should just do everything that she says.
Honestly,
literally.
Yeah. That means we are locking in Mitch Duncan because she said so, and she's smarter than all of us.
And she messaged me before she sent it through and said, can I add in another heading? And I said, you won Supercoach. Do whatever you want.
You do whatever you want. Like she's got to wait on 2 players, on Tom Stewart and Patrick Dangerfield. Stewart apparently is braining it on his recovery from injury. Like he's seeing a ballet physio and is doing far better than anyone who has a Liz Frank foot thing should be doing. Still scares the hell out of me. So I'm not loving it. But yeah, Cooper Stevens is the one that I'm really intrigued with, in that the Cats need to not be so old and meme-worthy, and Cooper Stevens is neither old nor meme-worthy, so might get selected. So intrigued there. But outside of that, yeah, Duncan, are we picking Duncan? Are we just picking it and going with it, or are we worried by the soft tissue old man injuries that are starting to creep into Mitchie's game?
Duncan hasn't left my team since it opened.
It's an interesting one. I know I haven't had any of these locks. He's not in my team. I've got Tom Hawkins in that spot. I just
love that.
Forwards, I'm still, my 550 rule for defense. It's probably like a 525 rule in the forwards. And at the moment, Tom Hawkins fits under that. Mitch Duncan doesn't. I know it's probably a silly way to do it, but at the moment, I just can't fit him in. But I totally get it. And if Supercoach Mama says it, then we should be doing it. By the way, if you don't follow her on Twitter, at eChallis, ECHALLIS, she won Supercoach. She knows what she's talking about.
She knows what she's talking about. So go read that article, and that'll give you the rundown on everything. Can we talk about Hawkins, though? We didn't really get too much of a rundown of Tommy in the article. And like you and I have been saying this for, I feel like 5 years, that like, oh, he's going to finish in the top like 8 forwards for Supercoach. Oh, but we won't pick him. And then he does it every single year. Are we just going to pick him this year?
And that's why you've picked him. That is exactly why Lek has picked him.
But
Lek has looked at it, and he thought about the fact that Lincoln McCarthy was a top 20 forward on total points last season, and said, you know what? I'm going to pick Tom Hawkins because he's always at the top of this goddamn list.
To play the devil's advocate that I've been playing every year for 5 years and being shown up for it, he's another year older. Geelong are another year older and another year, in my opinion, further from flag contention. Like, does he do it again? How does he do it again? How could he possibly do it again? I say for the 5th year in a row, he's done it 5 years in a row.
Look, he played 22 games last year, averaged 94.
How?
The first 7 games he was down. He only averaged 83 across that, but then rounds 8 to 16 averaged 100. Rounds 17 to 23 averaged 97. Look, if he's fit, he's gonna take marks, he's gonna kick goals, and he's gonna tackle occasionally, and he's gonna get you some points. If he's my most expensive and riskiest, in quotation marks, I say risky, looking at my forward line, that's a lie. If he's my safest option, and I think he's going to be a top 8 forward, I'm just picking him, and I do.
Yep. Here's something, Lek, that you may have not thought about, but it's something that has come to my mind just now. Tom Hawkins attends ruck contests in the forward 50 for Geelong. Would that make him eligible for a ruck position by about round 6 to 12?
I don't know, but God, I hope so. I don't know. I don't even know how that helps us, but I'll tell you what, I want it to happen.
And then we get Mark Blissarves taking him in the back half of the ground, so we get a defence ruck for Blissarves. Like, we're laughing. We're laughing all the way to West Coast because we've got to move on because, oh boy, this is turning into a long podcast. How does this keep happening? So this one...
Because we like to talk to each other.
We like to talk to each other. It's lovely. So Emprex put this one together, EMPR_X. Big fantasy footy brain and wonderful human Emprex.
Awesome cheat sheets he chucks up, both for Supercoach and for, if you're a betting man, for gambling. He does a lot of great stuff. So check him out, follow him on Twitter.
Yeah. Aside from Greg Clark, lock him in. Immediately just lock him in. Don't even question it. Talks about Tim Kelly and Shannon Hearn as breakouts and smokies, respectively. Oh, I don't love it.
I'm not picking the burn, man. Not again.
But don't love it. But also, I want to. I feel.
Here's the thing about
Pardon.
Empire. Here's the thing about him. Whatever he says doesn't happen. And so I think he has written this purposely to make whoever else people pick actually be good.
He's taking a hit for the team, like a karma hit for the team.
Yes.
Like Lek not being allowed to pick Sam Walsh ever.
Well, that might change this year. That might change.
And he's told people
You heard
to
it here
avoid
first, folks.
Liam Duggan. So maybe Liam Duggan pumps out 120 average or something from.
Jeez. Oh, jeez.
Well, let's talk about it, because I'll tell you what, his lock is my R1, and that's Nick Nat Newey.
Love that.
11th overall last year, 627k. Played, how many games did he play?
I think he played every
22
game.
games, averaged 115, averaged 121 over his last rounds 8 to 23. So however many games that is, 121.
And I was looking at his points per minutes stat earlier today.
It's insane.
And in the final round where he scored his highest score for the year, 165 versus Brisbane, he scored at 1.9 points per minute and was only on field for 77% of the match.
So I had this conversation with someone on Twitter. Apologies, I can't remember who it was. And they were saying, like, someone was arguing that his time on ground is always really low, so how can you trust him? And their response was, well, he averaged 115 across 22 games with low time on ground. So it doesn't matter what his time on ground is for me, because if he can still punch out scores, I'm happy to select him. And I think he's underpriced. I think he's underpriced at 627.
Yeah, and he'll be a massive pod. But while we're on that, like, low time on ground, that presents an opportunity for somebody else to jump in there. They've said Oscar Allen will not be in the ruck this year, which means, by my very back of the envelope bad calculations, Bailey Williams is going to spend a bunch of time in the ruck. And Bailey Williams being 218k in the forward ruck swing, that means cash money? Question mark. He's not cheap, but
potentially more cash money if Luke Stranatica gets one of their empty list spots.
That's very true. But I think whoever gets that backup ruck role as a Jack Darling / backup ruck fill in, I think that's, if it's Bailey Williams or Stranatica, I think we pick him. I think there's an opportunity there.
Look, I would probably need to see some upside in the we're not going to see much preseason action, but in the preseason at 218k, because at that price, you're comparing him to guys like Charlie Curnow, Stephen Gnigliog, Cam Rayner's a bit more expensive, Josh Rochelle.
Is it bad that I have
Braden
all of those
Pruce
players you've mentioned?
What's that?
Is it bad that I have all of those players you've just mentioned?
Well, I'm just reading them off my team list, so. But you know what I mean? There's a lot of value around that price who have shown it before, whereas Bailey Williams, we're banking on upside and opportunity rather than
fair.
prior performance.
Very fair. Very fair. All right. Richmond. God, I hate Richmond.
Kev
as a
wrote
football
this.
club and as a fantasy side,
Damo, you're the Kev whisperer.
But can we talk about the fact that I got Kev back to the website?
Kev is one of the best humans that on the planet, and
God, I love him.
Damo, you have a way with words to get him back on. We love him so fucking much.
I just asked him, and he was like, "Yeah, all right."
Well, maybe that's where I'm going wrong. I'm passively aggressively trying to bully him into joining the website and writing and stuff.
I mean, that's you bullying someone. No, never.
No,
never.
I would never do that. I've never been banned off Twitter or Twitch.
Dustin Martin is the lock for Kev at no surprise. 504k, cheap for what Dusty can do. Like, I don't think we need to talk too much about Dusty Martin. Jaden Short as well at 535k is an intriguing option to fit in that lock option.
Jaden Short is the one that I've locked into my Supercoach team because his scores without Basher Hooley and without David Asprey are through the goddamn roof.
They're
Jaden
quite
Short
high.
is probably my favourite Richmond option this year. I was all in last year. I want to be all in again this year. I currently am like $2,000 short of having him in.
I remember round 1 last year, he was getting points just by breathing near the ball.
Yeah, he was on like 60 at quarter time.
Yes.
Um,
And I remember Tim Mitchell, God bless his heart, did not start him and was like, what the hell is happening with this guy's score? He is
oh,
getting points and I can't even see him.
Yep, I do recall that. Yes, he's a decent. He's a good option. And listening to the draft doctors a lot this preseason as well. They've been very good. Go check them out. They've got the working theory that Jaden Short doesn't benefit as much from Hooley's departure as Nick Vlaston does,
Oh, I like Boston.
which is an intriguing way of looking at it. So I still think Short will be very, very good. I'm not expecting him to use Cam's favorite phrase, to brain it straight from the start.
So Short and Vlosten are two guys I think it's a really good thing, a good apt comparison. Over his last 3 games, which were between round 17 and 23 last year, Nick Vlosten averaged 106. Jaden Short averaged 106. Vlosten really started coming on from a scoring. He averaged 82 across the middle of the year across 8 games. He's an exciting prospect and at 80 grand cheaper than Jaden Short. I mean, I'm probably not bold enough to start him, Patch, over
neither.
Jaden Short.
I have
Neither.
wanted to
It's
start
very
Nick
interesting.
Vlaston for 2 years now, and I just can't. Like, something has always been better. But I love watching Nick Vlaston play, and I've got Nick Vlaston in a keeper league, and my goodness, he is someone who I am guarding with my life.
Yeah. I think he's a brilliant draft option, but I think Kev's put it best himself at the end when he's got avoid Richmond players. Just throw a blanket over them, and aside from Dusty, Short, and whichever rookie breaks in round 1, I'm not going there. I just don't. No, they're just not the Supercoach friendly side, and it's worked for them in that they've won 3 flags. But yeah, no.
By the way, I don't have Dusty in my team.
I don't
Another
have
lock
him
I
either.
have not selected.
I don't have him either.
I
but
don't have him in my team either.
I wouldn't be mad to have him. Danny Rioli, not interested. Josh Gibcus probably won't play. Sydney Stack, no, thank you.
What about Prestia?
Nah, he's undervalued. He's underpriced, but in that midfield,
Isn't he?
midfield
Isn't he
this year,
forward
no.
eligible now?
Is he?
Or am I imagining that?
That is Jack
No,
Graham.
Jack Graham is the one that intrigues me, but again, I'm not going there because Richmond to scare me.
I know Jack Graham can average 100 plus. Whether he will average 100 plus is another thing.
Yeah, as we've just spoken about all the value in the forward line, I'd rather go with it.
All right, let's
get out of here.
push on to the final one of this podcast. We thought how idiotic were we that we thought we were going to get through them all. Let's look at the Essendon Bombers. Patch, you wrote this.
I did, shockingly.
It was a descent into madness, and we got to experience it through your eyes, which was great. You want to avoid every single player who plays in the midfield for the Essendon Bombers, but the name I like, and he has not been a popular selection, but you're Smokey and Dyson Happel. I think he's not being spoken about enough.
In
541k.
In my team, and hasn't really left it, to be honest with you. Very, very good halfback.
Can you speak to us on that?
He just seagulls. He's just very good at seagulling and marshalling the troops and wandering around and picking up a fair chunk of the ball. And he's just really consistent when he's in that role. He had, I think his lowest score for the year last year was 85.
It was 80.
80.
Lowest score was 80.
There, and then got up to 121 as his highest score with a bunch of tons, a bunch of 90s, really consistent. And, it looks like, touchwood, he's over a lot of those injury concerns, has been flying preseason. The role is his. I think he's a better option than Jordan Ridley.
I was just about to ask you that.
I think he's a. Oh, it hurts
Nah.
to say, and I want to pick
Patch.
both of them.
I gotta ask.
Mm.
Do you know if he's been playing this role in the Essendon match simulations that they've been doing?
Heppel.
Correct. Yes.
I believe so. I believe so. I think a lot of the Essendon match sim focus is on who's playing in the midfield because that's the big question, and the big question I don't want to bar of honestly. But I assume so. I don't know what other role he'd be playing. He's not up forward. I think he's still just seagulling. Will take some kickouts. Will just do what he did last year.
Because I've heard that Ridley and Kelly are working really well together.
Yep, I have.
You've got your you've got your key defenders sorted out, and then there's a few other, and then you've got your main guys sort of in those other 2 or 3 positions. So I didn't know if Heppel, because no one's really talking about Dyson Heppel for some reason. He looks like someone who could perhaps be moved around during the match simulations, but may nail down a spot during the season.
There's the risk during the season, I think, that if we get a bunch of injuries, he might go into the middle, which if he goes into the middle, then he'll still score, what's he averaged the last couple of seasons as a midfielder? 90, like high 90s, low hundreds. I think he's a really safe option regardless of where he plays, but I think we've got enough midfielders now that he just plays down back and is that, him and, Nick Hine is the attacking option. Heppel is kind of the more link up guy.
Look, Dyson Heppel's a very, very interesting player. He's not a sexy player. In hindsight, it's super obvious that we should have started him at 319k last year. It's super obvious. Fantasy Freako said it. We should have listened because the only outlier in his career where he really didn't average very much was 2020 when he averaged 66 and got injured.
Played 3 games.
I suspect that he does once again average 99 to 100. You compared him to Corey Enright. It makes me sick. Maybe you're right though. But the reason no one's bloody looking at him is because Jordan Ridley is a better pick. Jordan Ridley's a better pick. Jake Kelly, we said it, Damo, when Jake Kelly signed with Essendon, it makes Jordan Ridley a better player.
You know what? Pick them both.
That's madness.
Could you start the year with Short, Ridley, Heppel, and Vlosten?
I mean, you can do whatever your heart desires.
It's not.
I'm trying to avoid picking multiple premiums from the same team this year because COVID is going to destroy.
I am also doing that. Yep. I sort of look around and select players from teams I don't already have players from that team of.
Yeah.
That if in 50-50 calls, that is being my deciding factor at the moment.
That's fair. That's fair. I think they'll both be very good options. I think they'll both be great.
Yes, they're both going to be good, but the fact that Heppel's more expensive than Ridley, and I think is going to average 20 points less per game.
20 points, you reckon? What do you see both of them averaging then?
I think Heppel averages 100, and I think Jordan Ridley could average 100. And I honestly think he could average 125. Like, wow. I am that high on him this year.
Wow. Look, Ridley will be very good this year. They'll both be very good. I want them both. Look, yes, pick them both is my official answer. On the rookie front, Kane Baldwin probably won't play early. I just don't think he's ready. Hasn't played. He's played 1 or 2 VFL games, and they're the only games he's played since he was 15. And they just won't throw him in. I hope they don't throw him in. Garrett McDonough has also apparently not looked crash hot in match sim, and I don't know how he fits in. So if you're one of the 13,000 people that have him, maybe unhave him.
Listening to Dan Batten, it sounds like Garrett McDonough is still getting big raps from the Essendon insiders.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, listening to people that have been there, the lunchtime catch-up pod, I listened to their rep, and they said, he hadn't done all that much that had impressed them. And I think he played on the pink, the second side during recent match sims as much as you can't really read into them too much. But I don't know. I'm not counting on him being there round one. I don't know who he replaces or where he fits in or what happens there.
All right, let's wrap this up. By the way, I'm not saying pick him, but Peter Wright did average 104 of his last 7 games last year.
Good God.
Let's move 447k in the forward line. Let's move.
No.
Let's end this podcast because we've done half of the league. We thought we were going to do the whole league. We didn't. It's already been an hour. Damo, thank you for joining us. Thank you for organising all these pocket profiles, and we'll see you back in part 2.
Yeah, I mean, every gear had to work to make it run, but everyone got their profile in when I asked for them, and it all worked out fine. And thanks to everyone for writing one, and that was asked, and maybe it's something I'll do again next year.
Yeah, well, the responses have been epic, and we can just look at the numbers on the reads, mate. People have frothed these articles. I think your Freo is still trumping it. I think your Freo is still number 1 article, baby. So well done. Patch, thank you for joining. Great to see your beautiful locks.
It's a pleasure to be here, as always. Love chatting to you two, and love chatting to the community. I hope you've been well. It's been a little while since we've been on the airwaves, and it is nice to be back.
And once again, thank you to supercoachchampion.com. Go there to get all of your Supercoach Championship rings for your leagues. Community, we bloody love you.